So welcome everybody. We're doing a new series on interviewing fellow visually impaired and blind YouTubers. And our first interview and first guest is Emily from the YouTube channel Fashioneyesta, and we'll get links in the description. And she has agreed to do this interview from a cold call, with a cold email actually. Like, I found her via another blind YouTuber, and that's Blind to Billionaire. So we're gonna go through and just discuss assistive technology and how Emily uses things in her daily life. And Emily, feel free to pass on any question or anything you don't want to talk about. That's totally fine. So we're going to go ahead and start it off. Tell us about your YouTube channel and how you got started. What's the focus?
My YouTube channel actually began because I also have a blog, and my blog was what I started off with first. But really the idea behind both essentially was I wanted to create a space that was about what I stood for, and that was about being individual and having, a sense of self and doing what made you happy and not letting other people's perceptions deter you from that. And I think really that was because when I first got my guide dog, I started to do a lot more, and I started to be a lot more independent than I was. And I've always had a very big interest in style and beauty and things like that, because my mother was, a makeup artist, and she was in that kind of work, and I've always been interested in that kind of thing. And people would say to me, "Oh, you don't look blind. How can you be blind? You don't look blind." And it was a weird comment for me because I've never really experienced that much before. And people said, "Oh, yeah, it's very common." And it became a bit of a running joke because it was like, well, what do people mean when they say you don't look blind? There's no such thing as looking blind. And I just wanted to make a space to sort of talk about my experiences, but also things I loved, and to just, I guess, subtly show people that, you can be your own person and you can pursue whatever interests you like, regardless of your situation. And if it makes you happy and you enjoy it, then do it, and don't allow people to deter you from that. And it kind of went from there, really, to be honest. I started it in 2012 and I'm still doing it now. So
wow, you've been at it a lot longer than we have. So let's see, where do you live? Do you live near a big city or
I live in London, actually.
In London?
Yeah, I live in the suburb, or like the suburbs of London. So sort of, for anyone who's familiar with the geography of London, I live near Greenwich, which is where that was the hunting grounds for King Henry VIII. So that's a bit of trivia for you. So that's where I live.
Okay. Nice. That's going to come into play with the assistive technology questions. Your vision loss, if you could briefly, I know it's on your channel and it's one of the questions that we get probably most often. So if you just cover it for the audience, briefly.
Yeah, so I was born with my sight loss, and I have a condition called septo-optic dysplasia, and it's a congenital condition that affects your sight as well as your endocrine system. So it can present itself as a visual impairment, like it has in my case, as well as a medical condition with a number of kind of sub illnesses that can come as a result of that. And there are other things it can affect as well, but in my case, it's the medical side and also the sight impairment aspect. So I have optic nerve hyperplasia, which is because of that condition. So I'm totally blind in my right eye, and I've only got central vision in my left eye because of underdeveloped optic nerves. And I also have, because of the optic nerve hyperplasia, I have a nystagmus, so I have difficulties focusing. So I've got two eye conditions that are linked to each other, essentially, and I've had it since birth, and it's never got better, it's never got worse, so it's stayed as it has pretty much throughout all of my life.
Okay. Do you have any like eye fatigue with the nystagmus, trying to focus? Do you get eye fatigue pretty easily?
Yeah, I do. A lot of eye fatigue and a lot of eye pain, especially if I'm having to read things. And obviously, I was a literature student, I studied English literature, and then a master's in children's literature. So there was a lot of reading involved. So eye pain was pretty much a common part of my day when I was studying.
Yeah. What about photophobia or sensitivity to light?
Yes, mild photophobia. It's not huge. It's not a huge component of my condition, but it can happen, and it does happen for people who've got optic nerve hyperplasia. And in my case, it does, especially if the sun's quite low down in the sky and there's a harsh glare. Yeah. Or if I've just woken up in the middle of the night and someone's called me, or I've had a notification and I'm trying to look at my screen, it can be quite harsh on my eyes.
Mm-hmm. what kind of training or blind rehab or any kind of I guess official schooling did you go through, and like how old were you when you did that?
Oh, that's a very difficult question because people weren't sure of my exact level of sight loss when I was very young, because I was diagnosed at around 1.5 to 2 with having my condition, but they weren't sure how much sight I had. So for a very long time, I didn't get the proper support, and it only really started to become better as I got older. Really, when I reached secondary school, actually, I had support when I was younger, but not what I would have personally felt would have been enough at my age when I was. But I guess when I got to secondary school, I started to get a lot of habilitation work, help with orientation, using a long cane. I started to use that a bit more. I was never overly confident, and I think that's because of the way in the early days I didn't get enough support when I was very young. And so when I got to the age I was very much someone who felt uncomfortable using it because I hadn't been given a lot of training when I was young. But I started to get used to using it, and I started to use it a bit more. I also got support from the RNIB charity here in the UK, the Royal National Institute for Blind People, who gave me things like a Daisy player, because this was kind of a little bit before iPhones had really made the big break. I think I got my first proper iPhone when I was about 12 or 13.
A Daisy player is like an audiobook player, correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So back then, before all the new apps came out,
Right.
it was basically just like a recording player where you'd put a disc in it and it would read an audio book, and that helped me to read all of my books. And I had large print books as well, but to be honest, they were quite heavy, and also at the time you had to pay for them, so they were quite expensive. So I tended to use the audiobook option instead. But when I was young, I had to use large print books so I actually was able to read and learn things like phonics. And I also learnt to touch type as well. Like, I learnt to touch type when I was in primary school, but when I got to secondary school, they helped me to really perfect the skill. So now I'm a touch typist too. And yeah, it kind of went from there really. I think secondary school was when really I learned a lot of the skills that I have now in later life, especially for things like technology and also orientation as well. And then obviously when I was 18, I got my guide dog, so that was a really big moment for me. And then I did a lot of accessibility, like assistive technology training I did when I was at university, so I was able to do my studies as well. So yeah, it's kind of it was a long road. It wasn't easy, because I had an illness that wasn't very common, so it meant that people didn't really understand what my needs were until I was a bit older.
Now, we're here in the United States. We're in North Carolina, and I have some experience with the Veterans Affairs. It's the medical side where they provide different assistive devices and training, and they'd have an inpatient. It's like a blind rehab where you just go to the school for a few months and get different schooling and techniques, life skills, and mobility, technology, and other focuses that you may specialize in. There's similar schools in the civilian world in America, in the United States. I think they have some in Canada. I'm not too sure what you guys have over there as far as formal.
Like blind specific.
Yeah, like visually impaired schooling, or blind rehab schooling, anything like that. I know you mentioned you did assistive technology training in university. So can you tell us anything about that, whether you have firsthand experience or if you just know what's available there in the UK?
So I think it is very regional in some senses. So obviously we have the charity, the Royal National Institute for Blind People, and they help a lot with things like technology training. They do a lot of work for like mobility, life skills. They do things like a finding your feet course, which is where if you've recently been diagnosed with an eye condition and you've lost sight, you can join these classes, and it will go through different things like, it's basically like a bumper course in like, what do you need to know when you first lost your sight. There's a lot of emotional support as well. actually with the RNIB, they have a service where they have eye clinic liaison officers. So they have officers whose jobs it is when someone is first diagnosed with an eye condition and they are losing or they've lost their sight, they will be there to give them coaching and to help them to find information and helpful resources that will help them during their sight loss journey. And there's also things, obviously, different locations, so different boroughs or different councils here in the UK will offer different sorts of support. There'll be different regional programs, so obviously it differs from place to place. And then there's other charities like Guide Dogs is a very big one for me, who help with the mobility side of things. So, of course, providing guide dogs is one of the main things. I know in America and obviously Canada, they have different schools, but here in the UK, we have the one charity. So we have Guide Dogs for the Blind. That's the only one we have, and that they are the provider of all of our guide dogs.
How old were you when you first got your guide dog?
So I was 18. I applied when I was about 16 and a half, and I got her when I was 18 years old.
Yeah. What's is it the same dog, or is it?
Yeah, I still do. She's due to retire early part of next year. She's 10 now, but I'm on the waiting list to go for my second canine friend. But yeah, she's my first. Her name is Unity, and she's fluffy golden Labrador retriever cross. She's lovely, really sweet dog.
What's her name again?
Unity. Yeah.
Oh, Unity.
But Uni for short.
Uni. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you said you have some cane. You started using a cane. What type of tip do you prefer if you use a cane when you're not using Unity?
So I have the roller tip kind. So it's the one that obviously rolls across the floor. I used to use one that you would tap, but when I was very young, but I didn't like it at all, and it wasn't helpful for me. So I personally use a roller tip one now. I actually know there are canes that have been designed now where they light up and they are easy to see in the dark. And I'm thinking when my guide dog retires about actually investing in one of those, because that would probably be very beneficial to me. But I'm not thinking about that for a little while longer because she doesn't retire just yet. But when I do, I'm thinking about, until I get my second guide dog, actually getting a light up roller tip cane so that people can see when I'm coming. So especially with social distancing, I think that'd be very helpful at the moment.
Yeah, I use the roller tip too. And there's a few different canes out now. One of them has GPS built into the cane, and it does all kinds of, it's like a smart cane. I haven't messed with it. I've just heard about it. It can help you with
it's so much more advanced. I feel so out of tune. I don't hardly ever use my cane, so I don't really need to. So now I'm thinking, and then
one in there. I'm sorry. Just recently they came out with something called a NoJab cane. So like the handle retracts. It has like a spring in it. As you know, I'm sure you've been jabbed by your cane before while walking down the sidewalk, and it gets caught in a crack. So that's to help limit the impalement factor with using a cane. But yeah, there's all kinds of different tips that I've tried. I like the roller most often because it's easier to get more feedback, I think, tactilely and even auditorily. Like when it rolls, you get more. So you're primarily guide dog with mobility. What kind of navigation system do you use?
So I've used like the Microsoft Soundscape app on my phone. I like that a lot.
Okay.
And I also use just the standard app that my iPhone has, which is just the built-in Maps app. I find that pretty easy to see, and obviously when it has audio announcements to tell me where I'm going when I'm walking, I find that's usually enough for me, and that helps a lot. But I do find that the Soundscape app from Microsoft is also very useful as well. I quite like the interface of that, and that's pretty easy to see. I've tried using things like the Trekker Breeze in the past, but I like having a touch screen. So for me, I didn't really get on with that very well. I found that it was a bit more confusing and a bit more time consuming. And obviously I always have my phone out, so it just made more sense to find an app that I could just have my phone out when I'm on the go, and I wouldn't have to get a large piece of equipment out when I'm walking. So and obviously I have a guide dog as well. I have to be mindful, obviously, because she needs instruction. So I need an app that's going to tell me where to go pretty quickly, and I won't have to keep stopping and pausing and listening. So yeah, that kind of works it well for me, to be honest.
Do you use VoiceOver on the phone?
I know how to use it. So sometimes I do use it. Having this condition, obviously, where you get a lot of eye fatigue and my eyes can get strained, I do know how to use it, and I do sometimes use it. But as a rule, I tend to use the zoom feature on my
Right.
iPhone, and also the speak selection or speak screen options as well, just to read large pieces of text. But I can use voiceover. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I just prefer to use other options.
Yeah, I primarily use voiceover. Like my vision level is to the point where I can't read anything even with magnification, and so voiceover is my world. It does everything for me, except when there's apps where it's not compatible, or websites they're not very well designed, which happens a lot. But for navigation I use Blind Square. It's it's like a completely voiceover friendly app that can be done all auditorily, and it pulls GPS data from the web and from maps, and so it gives you distance and direction as you're walking down the sidewalk. You can put in your favorite coffee shop, and it will tell you the route to it, distance and direction as you're walking, and then while you have the app open, it will even read or notify you of other stores and other things nearby. It'll give you distance, direction. It'll say, Target at 3 o'clock at 200 meters and things like that as you're going through town. So it's a pretty neat app called Blind Square that I use for my main navigation app. Are you a Braille user?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, me neither. I've tried learning from Hadley School for the Blind, and only got through a few of the lessons, and we moved. But there's so much with assistive technology that I definitely can recognize the benefit for it. However, there's a big learning curve, and with the assistive tech, it seems like I'm going to keep cheating and use the the robots to help me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that it's great to learn if you can, especially because it's such an old skill. It was, and it's part of the blind culture's heritage as well. So I'd hate to see it, not be used and become obsolete, because it's such a monumental thing, for people who've got sight loss, that it was created. I mean, for me personally, I don't use it because I use I live on my iPhone or my MacBook, and I've found really great apps like OCR apps that help me to convert a letter into a speaking document. So I've got by this long without using Braille, but
what app
maybe,
is that?
Sorry?
What app? Your OCR app that you use? What is it?
I use a few. So there's Prismo is really good. I like. I also use Seeing AI, and I also like Claro Read as well. I've got an app called Tiny Scanner where I can scan a document and then I can convert it using Claro Read into like a speaking document. So that's really good. I started using that at university actually, and I still use it now. I think it's one of the main things I use. Actually, it's probably my favorite app for reading documents. Claro is probably one of the best ones.
Claro, like I think the max speed is like 600 words a minute. Like it's crazy fast.
but whenever I use voiceover or anything like that, and I've got it on really like loud, like fast, people, oh my god, how can you listen to that? But it's the same as someone like scrolling through a website with their eyes. They just go, ooh, and they find what they're looking for. So it's the same. If you're using your hearing all the time, you get used to it. So people like you just think you're superhumans. It's like, well, it's not. It's just cool. It's a little something called just lived experience. You'd get used to it if you did it every single day in, day out. So
exactly,
it's quite funny people's reaction.
Yeah. So let's see what other we got. Mobility, navigation. How about life skills in the kitchen? Is there any different tools that you use to help you with cooking or food preparation?
Yeah, so I've got talking scales and a talking scale jug from the RNIB, and they're really good. They were given to me, and I also I had a talking microwave, which is brilliant, and it's broke. So I've got to try and find out if I can get it fixed or if I can get a replacement. But I've had a talking microwave for quite a few years now. And I also have a liquid level indicator. So obviously, yeah, pretty much. I'm sure everyone probably knows what that is. Put it in your tea or whatever.
Does yours have a tone or a vibration?
It's got well, it's got a vibration, so obviously the slower it is, obviously as it gets quicker, like it will, you know, the more rapid the beeps in between, it will mean higher the level of the liquid is.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a real basic one, and yours might be the same. So for the people watching the video, like mine just clips on the side of a cup or a bin, and has two prongs, two metal prongs, and whenever the liquid reaches both, then it gives a vibration saying, you know, it's full. And is that similar to yours?
Yeah, yes. I think there's two levels. There's kind of like one for the bottom prongs, and as it goes up, it's the top prongs get a bit hot, like the noise gets a bit quicker. So I think that's, I think it's probably the same thing.
Yeah. Talking thermometer.
No, actually, but I need to. I see, like, because I live with sighted parents. Obviously, they can. I usually FaceTime them if I'm cooking something I'm not sure. But to be honest, it's something on the list. I keep meaning to get it, so I've actually made a note. I need to get one actually, because when my parents go away and I house sit and I'm on my own and I'm cooking something that needs to be checked thoroughly, sometimes I literally I do the thing where my dad's got really expensive woks, and I've ruined so many of them because I literally cremate the food because I'm so paranoid that I'm gonna kill myself, like with like food poisoning. So I need to get a thermometer to save his woks, to be honest.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Okay. What other things? What about a talking watch, or do you just use your phone primarily?
I use my phone primarily. I used to have a talking watch when I was very young, obviously before phones became a thing, from the RNIB, and I loved it. I thought it was great. It had fish on it.
Yes.
But yeah, now I just use my phone, to be honest, just because it's easier. So.
You mentioned OCR things for the computer. Do you have anything that you use on the mobile? Anything while you're on the go? You mentioned seeing AI. Is anything other than that?
Seeing AI, Prismo. I also use. I'm trying to think what else I use. I think Seeing AI is the main one. Claro Read as well. You can get Claro Read for your iPhone as well. Right. I use that. I really like things like, obviously, you know, kind of standard things like the Audible app. I use like FaceTime when I'm shopping and I need to find a particular product, like a makeup
You're
product.
Jumping ahead on me.
Yeah. So so kind of like those are the main ones really. And then of course things like iBooks and Kindle to read books and things like that.
And I'm sorry for the people at home, if you're not familiar, OCR is optical character recognition. So basically it's a program or an app that will take printed text, or if it's on the computer, and it will give it to you in an auditory way so that it can be read to you. So that's very handy, especially if you are out and about and you have documents that you need to review, to sign, or somebody gives you something and you can't see it, whether it's small print or whatever in your case, and then you can use that Seeing AI and actually get an idea of what it is. Notes.
Yeah, brilliant.
What you mentioned books, you said Audible, and what was the other?
So Audible, but also Kindle and iBooks.
Yes, yeah.
Like those two mainly. For any like ebooks that I read.
What about Bard? Have you heard of Bard? BARD?
No, I haven't actually.
So it may be US specific, but I'll send you a link. We'll email you a link of different book apps that I use. I have probably 9 or 10 that I bounce back and forth with. Some of them I think are regional. Another one. Go ahead.
I mean, there's another one I actually use. Actually, you've just reminded me. The RNIB have a talking book library, and it's free to sign up to. And basically, you sign up to it, and then you download. I think the app's called Easy Reader or something like that. I think it's provided by Dolphin, and you sign up to the account, and then you can download audiobooks and play them on there. It used to be a few years ago, it was called Overdrive, but then they've recently changed over to a different service. Well, that's great because they're free audiobooks and you can listen to as many as you like, which is really great. So
and they tap into the old Daisy books that are on file somewhere. So all those that were available way back when are available via Easy Reader, via the Dolphin program and everything. So that's cool. Note taking. What's your primary form of note taking?
So obviously, because I'm a touch typist, it's pretty easy for me to be able to type what I'm needing to write down on Mac, and so I just mainly use like a Word document. But when I was studying, I used to use a piece of software which was like a, oh, I can't remember what it was called. It was like it was a recording software where you could record, the audio would record on the one side, and then you could like put little pointers of the lecture notes on the other side, so it would kind of link up with what was being said at the time, and it was perfect. It was a really great piece of software. It was given to me as a disabled student, because you apply for funding in the UK. The way it works is you apply for disabled students allowance, which is basically where you are given like software, technology, non-medical help with like bills that any extra costs that you would need as a disabled student. It's basically met through this scheme, and I got this piece of software from that. I'll have to tell you what the name of it was, and you can put it in the description for your viewers. But it was great, and it was really beneficial. And I had a microphone that I would attach to my computer and use it with that. But yeah, mainly just like I use notes, because you can add like pictures and you can add like extra pieces of information to that if you want to. So I use notes quite a lot. And I also just use like voice memos as well. So I record voice memos if it's a very long, like if it's a lecture, or if it was a lecture or something I would need to like type out afterwards, I would just record it and then do it later.
What about now? If you're out on the go and it's like everyday transaction, do you take any notes of that? Or if it's a bigger transaction or some kind of interaction that you would want notes of, do you have anything that you do, voice memo, what kind of, do you take notes, or do you even, is that a concern for you?
Well, I use Apple. If you're talking about like transactions like pay for something, then obviously I use Apple Pay a lot, because it means that it will just list all the transactions for that day, and I will just be able to go back and see what I've spent, and what's what. But yeah, I mean, mainly I use notes, to be honest, because it's pretty easy to navigate, and I mainly use that. I have, if I'm going out and I know that I might need to take notes, I've got my iPad, and I've got a little wireless keyboard that I purchased from Amazon, and I use that as well, so I don't have to take out my laptop, and that's really useful because I can still touch type and use notes, and it's great because it's like a nice combination between using like a phone and using a laptop. So I find that works really well for me as well.
With movie theater, do you still go to the, well, let's forget 2020.
I think we're all trying to do that.
Yeah, but prior to all the shutdowns, did you go to the movie theater? Do you enjoy going to movie theaters with friends, family?
Yeah, I was an avid movie goer. I was an avid movie goer. I used to love going to the theatre as well. I used to go a lot with my friends, my family. So yes, stage play and films were a big part of my sort of social life.
What about television? Do you still enjoy TV? Do you use the audio description options on things?
Yeah, so I do for certain things. If there's not a lot of dialogue, I'll probably use it. Like if it's like a film or a series where there's a lot of fighting involved, I'll use all the description, so I can follow along with what's going on. But if it's something where there's quite a lot of dialogue already, I tend to not put audio description on, because they can sometimes be a bit too much information to digest. But it depends really on the nature of what I'm watching. I mean, if I was going to see a show, like a theatre show, it would be very difficult for me to see what's going on. So I usually go on the days that theatres provide, where they will have an audio describer there, and you can go and they'll describe what's going on in the theatre, and then you can have a touch tour, and you can meet the actors afterwards and go and have a look at the stage up close, and they're really great. Here in the UK, we have a great company called Vocalize, and they provide all these kinds of touch tours, and they're really good for that. But yeah, for films and things like that, I will use services where there are audio descriptions, and I'll use them particularly for things that are a bit more action-packed, so it's easy for me to be able to see what's going on.
What other things do you do for entertainment, or do you do anything with sports? Because I know there's all kinds of different adaptive sports for the visually impaired and blind, but other forms of entertainment that you enjoy.
Well, I mean, books really is a big one for me. I'm trying to think really what else. I mean, I'd say in my spare time, like going to the films, and the going to the theatre was a big part of my life. I used to also enjoy, well, I still do actually, certain crafts as well. So I like to sort of sketch and like do digital drawing. So I use my iPad for that, and that's great because you can really zoom in, and the higher like the canvas size you select, obviously it will have more pixels, so it's more clearer to see. And that was great when I got my iPad and I started to draw on that. That was fantastic because I was able to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to do without it. That wouldn't have been physically possible for me to see. And then obviously making my YouTube videos as well. Like I really enjoy doing that, and I tend to use an app on my laptop that enables me to see the screen on my camera. It shows it more bigger, and I can control the settings from my laptop, and that's really good for me to be able to see what I'm doing. So I find that very helpful, actually.
Yeah. What else we got?
Travel?
Oh, travel. Do you get out and about? Again, forgetting 2020. Do you, how often do you get out, or do you like to travel? The UK or Europe or anywhere in the world?
Yeah, I love to travel. Traveling, and obviously until this dreaded year, was a big part of my life. I used to go on, short trips, and I used to love going to sort of little weekend breaks and traveling alone. I used to travel a lot with a charity here in the UK called Victor Children, and they do trips. Contrary to the name, they do things for adults as well, up until the age of 29. And I would go on trips with them. I went on a trip a couple of years ago with them to Edinburgh, which was fantastic. And they put on like social trips for visually impaired people of different ages. So they were really great. And I used to just enjoy traveling with friends and my mum as well. And I want to do more international travel as well when this whole thing is over. I've got plans. I'd like to go to Germany. That'd be a big thing I'd like to do. And at some point I'd like to go to Canada as well, in the States, and see certain parts of the States. So like I love traveling. It's something I really enjoy doing.
Do you primarily, was it have you done airfare, like air travel, or trains, or
it's mainly because I've done a lot of UK traveling. I do a lot of obviously trains mainly, and obviously in London where I am, I use the underground quite a lot. So obviously over there, I think it'd be the equivalent of like subway, but we call it the underground here. So I use that quite a lot, and I've used like planes as well. Like I got a flight to Edinburgh, and I've been on planes, but mainly I sort of, well, kind of places I travel to, I mainly use sort of long distance trains, and sometimes I've even used like ferries and things like that if I'm going to France and that kind of thing. So it just depends. Obviously having a guide dog is more difficult if you're trying to travel with the logistics, but
right.
I'm hoping to do more international traveling once this is all over with my second guide dog, and hopefully traveling a bit more around Europe possibly.
Yeah. Cool. Do you speak any other languages?
Not fluent. No, I speak a little bit of French, but I'm not fluent. I used to do it as a GCSE, but I would like to learn a language. Actually, I'd like to learn either fluent French or possibly Italian. So maybe I'll learn that over lockdown. Who knows?
Wow.
Bueno. Yeah. Okay. Safety when you're out and about. Have you had any training with personal safety or self-defense?
No, but I would like to. I know that there are some training programs that you can go on here in the UK that are sort of self-defense, but I haven't found one local to me yet. But I would like to learn a bit of self-defense. I think really having a guide dog does add an extra layer of security.
Yeah.
Obviously people who aren't really sure what the dog's nature is going to be. Obviously we all know guide dogs are lovely, but the average person might not know that. So it tends to be that people tend to keep their distance a bit more. So yeah, I mean, I've personally never done anything like that, but I mean, I would say I would benefit from it. But I've used. I'm trying to think. I think I've used like apps that have a panic alarm button on them in the past. Really, living in London, you've got to be quite self-aware anyway, because it's a very busy part of the UK to live in. So I think I've always had a little bit of kind of street savviness to me anyway. I kind of know the do's and don'ts living in London, so I'd like to think that I'm quite socially aware already. Kind of living in London gives that to you.
I bet. Have you heard of wearable camera systems such as Orcam or Ira?
Yeah, so I actually have a GoPro on my guide dog's harness. Actually, you've just reminded me. I have a GoPro for two reasons, really. One, because I've had a lot of guide dog access denials. So a lot of places have tried to tell me that I can't enter with a guide dog. And here in the UK, the law basically says that under the Equalities Act of 2010, um, that you are not allowed to deny a disabled person service, and that includes a guide dog, obviously, or an assistance dog. But it's hard trying to enforce the law, so people still try to tell me to leave. So I often have my camera so I can record them in the action, so I can use it as evidence. And also, my guide dog was attacked last year by another dog, so
Yes.
I have the camera so I can, obviously, if anything happened to me again like that, I could record it and again use it as evidence. And it's just like a small camera that I got from Amazon, and I found a good mount that I've been able to attach to my guide dog's harness.
Yeah.
I know some people use things like GoPros, but for me personally, because of what I'm using it for, I didn't want to lose it. So I've just got a more basic one, but I do also own a GoPro, but I would not use that for like an everyday thing for security reasons because I wouldn't want to lose it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I found there's I don't know if he's a YouTuber, but I just found him through YouTube. He made international news some years ago. He's a doctor from the UK, went blind, and has a GoPro on his guide dog. And it's the same kind of GoPro that I use. I wear mine on my chest. I don't have a guide dog yet. I'm on a list, and it's slow, but
Oh, wonderful.
yeah. So I use that, and I've tried the Orcam before, but it doesn't do everything that I need. The Orcam, the GoPro, I primarily use as my main note taker. So if I'm out in a new place that I'm unfamiliar with and I'm following my navigation app, but I'm having a rough go at traversing from point A to point B, whether it be obstacles like low hanging branches or signs or whatever, or lack of a sidewalk. Instead of playing Frogger and jumping back and forth across the street to try to find where the clearest path is, I'll just go and play it back for her later, and she'll be like, okay, next time you do this, you need at this intersection, you need to go on the east side of the road because there's a sidewalk and there's a clear path. So I use it to find more clear routes. I also use it just for safety. If a situation seems tense or if there's a confrontation, I'll click it on and it'll record. I use it for just basic note taking. If I'm doing any kind of transaction where I'm not using Apple Pay, like sometimes it's not available. If I'm using cash, for instance, like it's just another layer of security that people, and I want your input on this, like people, I think have a general lack of knowledge and understanding of the visually impaired community and what life is like and doing things independently. And then they also have this presumption that they're a good person and therefore most everybody's a good person and would never take advantage of somebody that's visually impaired, but it happens all the time. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think people, are just under the impression that, being visually impaired means that you're immune from any of the vices of the world and that you aren't going to come up against people who would, take advantage. And they are, I think, also to an extent unaware of the community's awareness of other people. I think there's kind of this idea that we're ignorant because we can't see this kind of like very deeply entrenched perception that being a visually impaired person means that you live in ignorance. So goes to saying, oh, how could you be so blind, aka how could you be such an ignorant person? And it's that's not really the case for us. We are aware of social situations, even though we can't see, we're still aware of them, and we're still aware of other people, even though we can't see people. And I've come up against situations where I've been made to feel vulnerable. I've known friends of mine who live in the local area who've had their possessions stolen, and one person had their house broken into, and also, things to do with access denials. People don't always treat you very well. I had a situation where I was actually threatened by a taxi driver once. I should say minicab, actually, not taxi. Yeah, that made me feel quite vulnerable. So yeah, I mean, people are under the impression that we would never have anything wrong done to us, but unfortunately that's not the case. Not everybody is of that moral caliber, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think you nailed something. Like, I think it's a lack of understanding. Ironically, it's, you know, the ignorance of the general public, or the blindness of the general public to just simple communication. You know, most of communication is nonverbal, and if you don't have any of the visual cues, if you don't have any vision that will cue you into that communication, most people don't take the time to consider, you know, what they're gesturing, or what they're, you know, pointing at, or what they're trying to describe. What's that?
Yeah, like, so it's over there. That's a common one. Oh,
yes.
It's over there. Go that way. Yeah, it's like, even my dad does it. He says, oh, it's over there. It's like,
right.
And I have to take a deep breath. And yeah, he usually comes out with a stupid Star Wars saying, he'll usually tell me to use the Force and I'll find it. And I forgive him. He's my father, and he knows it annoys me, and that's what fathers do, apparently. Yes. But, you know, when other people do it, it's a bit like, it's not very helpful. So
right. Yeah. Right. What else we got on the list here?
Let's see, common reactions that people have to you in public.
Oh yeah, just in general. What kind of reception or reaction do you get from people in the public? You know, with the guide dog, or if you're using your cane?
So it really is a mixed bag. I mean, a lot of people, you know, love guide dogs and love dogs in general. So people are always more interested in my guide dog than me, which is how I like it. I'm happy for people to be more interested in my guide dog. That does come with a bit of an issue though, because people often want to pet my guide dog, which I know that she's cute, but obviously she's doing a job. Luckily, Unity is not very distracted by human interaction. I'm very lucky with her, but equally my second guide dog could end up being very distracted by humans, which is a big concern for me. People sometimes aren't as, you know, friendly towards me because I have a guide dog. Not everybody does like dogs, or some people are a bit more afraid of dogs. So obviously in that situation, you know, people are a little bit more apprehensive around me. And obviously people who deny me access to places because I have a guide dog, that's quite difficult as well. Using a cane, because I don't really use it a lot because I have a guide dog, I don't really have a lot to go on as of late. But a lot of the time people seem to have this weird thing where they think that I'm going to move out of the way, like I'm miraculously going to be able to see them coming, and they walk towards me, and at the last they realize, okay, she can't see, and then they'll do this thing where they'll throw themselves out of the way and they'll look like something out of a video game, and I'm a bit like, I'm not like, I'm not using this for fun, people. Like, this is a real thing, okay? And that's quite amusing to watch. Well, I don't watch it, but other people tell me that they do it. But
I said her and our children will tell me, like, we'll walk through someplace, a mall or somewhere, and then afterwards, like, Dad, like, you're getting a lot more stares like here than like other places. And it's just really funny. Like some places, like the reaction, you know, it's a lot of it's nonverbal, you know, so they're doing it like to my face, but you know, you can't see it, you know, but I've got somebody that can see it and they're just like, what are you doing? You know, it's really funny.
That's so common. People are, oh my God, why'd you get so many stares? And like my family or my friends, oh my God, it's so annoying. And it's like, I mean, even with my guide dog, I get it. People just stare at me, and I mean, I can't see it, so I'm like, no, I'm blissfully ignorant. I have no idea. Like, and in that situation, ignorance is bliss, because I don't know, and I don't really care. And obviously, I don't know what's going on. But then, when I'm with someone who's sighted, they'll tell me, and it's like, well, okay, I didn't know that, but now I do. And it's like, I don't know. People, I think, I mean, different places you get different reactions, but I think it tends to be, when you have a guide dog, especially for me, it's people, they'll look and then they'll look again. And I think often it's because I have a guide dog, but sometimes I think it's because, you know, if I'm wearing something that's a bit more flamboyant and I've also got my phone out or something like that, they're like, okay, look once, oh, you've got a guide dog, oh, she's got a phone, oh, she's doing this, oh, this is really odd, I wouldn't have expected that. So it's, yes, I mean, once there was someone who literally kept looking around, at me because he was so in shock about what I looked like, and he literally walked into a glass door. So yeah, I mean, literally, I wanted to turn into an advert. Like there's a opticians company here in the UK, and there's a running joke with the adverts where the person who can't see very well will get themselves into a difficult situation. It's like, oh, you should have gone to Specsavers. I literally just wanted to say to him, you should have gone to Specsavers. But I withheld. I withheld, mostly because I was laughing too much or trying not to laugh. I was trying to stop myself laughing because I knew it wasn't really appropriate. But yeah, people were funny like that.
Yeah, where are we on our questions?
Do you have, let's see, any obstacles when using your assistive devices?
Yep, she touched that.
Okay. Is it hard
Oh,
to
advocacy. Yeah. Is it hard to advocate for yourself when you have a denial of service or any other kind of obstacles? I don't know if you've run into a place where they say that you can't use other devices. Like there's some places here that have bans on electronics, like blatant bans on electronics, which is illegal. It's against the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we advocate for that. We're like, well, this, the device does this X, Y, and Z. Do you have any experience with that? And what's your experience been for trying to advocate for yourself? Do you find it harder, or do you find it easier to advocate for yourself versus advocating for just the visually impaired community in general?
Well, I mean, in terms of like obviously guide dog denials, I've had plenty of those, and I've got better over time. I think there's definitely a way of saying what you need to say. I think it's what I always say to people is that you don't want to be abrupt, but you don't want to be too soft. You want to be like a teacher who's telling a student they've given them the wrong answer. So you want to be somewhere in the middle, because that's the best way of dealing with people I've found. So it's really is the way that you come across, and it's the way that you speak to them. Definitely helps. So it's not like, oh no, she's a guide dog, or no, she's a guide dog. It's like, no, she's a guide dog, it's fine, and that's all you need to say, and then that's it. That's how I've been able to deal with it. Because I used to, when I first got my guide dog, I went from a period of like literally getting them all the time and having to leave the stores to literally someone will say it to me, I will say those words, and they'll leave me alone because they realise they made a mistake. When it comes to other kinds of, I don't know, denials of services, I've not had too many, luckily enough. I remember one where I was going to a particular library, and they have a lot of very, rare books, and they don't tend to let you use your phone in there. So because obviously I've got devices that I need to use to be able to scan documents in, I had to get a letter of approval from a certain department to be able to go in there and use the services. And then I had to carry that around with me whenever I went in there to be able to take my phone out and use it. So that was one example. And obviously in the UK, with the voting system, it's quite difficult because we don't have anything like voting machines, and obviously we can't use our phones in the voting polls, but also a lot of the time that when I've been to vote, they don't even have the large print voting ballot papers, or they won't have the tactile markers to tell you what you're voting for. So I've had a few situations where actually a member of poll staff has had to come in to the booth and tell me what is what, and it's really uncomfortable. And obviously they are, by law, they should have that material there. So I've been involved with a few campaigns where we are asked actively as voters to tell the charity when a polling station has not provided what we need, and that can be very frustrating. So I've now applied to vote by the mail, so I don't have to keep dealing with that. But that's very difficult because it's really, as a voter, I should have the right to vote in private, and I don't, as a visually impaired person, and that's for me really frustrating.
Yeah. Okay. I think probably got a couple more questions and we'll let you go. You mentioned FaceTime earlier. How often do you use FaceTime? Do you use Be My Eyes? Do you use Skype? How often do you use some kind of video, live video component to have a sighted person help you find something, whether it be shopping or cooking, or you drop something, on the ground?
Pretty much all the time. There's so many FaceTime calls and WhatsApp FaceTime calls on my phone. Usually it's to my mum. If I'm shopping and I'm trying to find a particular product and I can't see it. So it's usually, it turns into something like a game show where she's like, left, 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 up, 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 keep going, stop, stop, stop. You've got it, you've got it. And it's like, it literally, I feel like I could, if I was in a game show where you had to navigate just by instructions, I would definitely win it. Because that's what it's like. So yeah, I use it for a lot for that. If I'm cooking and my parents are away and I need to make sure that I've cooked something correctly, then I'll usually call my parents to ask. Or if like if something goes wrong with the electrics in the house or like the boiler, I'll ring my dad and I'll ask him to coach me, obviously being sighted, to tell me what I need to do. But particularly I use it for shopping, really. I'm always using FaceTime for shopping if I need it. I don't really use anything like the Be My Eyes app because I prefer to have someone who I know tell me. I'm just a bit more private like that. So I just tend to ask either friends or family using either FaceTime or the WhatsApp video calling feature.
But so it sounds like it's a crucial component of your life, like having somebody available to actually look through a camera that you have on your person, most likely your phone, to help you navigate or find an item or fix something or cook something. Like it's a crucial component. Would you say? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely it is.
Agreed. Yeah. Technology today is amazing. Did you have any other last questions or anything?
You're absolutely delightful. I've thoroughly enjoyed sitting here listening to this conversation and interjecting.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. I think you two are lovely as well, and it's nice to actually meet people from other parts of the world who've got visual impairments, because I know a lot of people here in the UK, but I don't know a lot of people in the States. So it's always nice to meet new people and make online friends.
Yeah, likewise. We appreciate you agreeing to come on and answer some questions and tell us more about your life there in London and how you navigate the world with your visual impairment. And hopefully you get a new lovely guide dog and you can take care of Unity. What's the plans for Unity when she retires?
So she'll just become our pet dog. So she stays in the family home and then she just becomes the pet dog who gets to eat and sleep and do nothing for the rest of her days, which I think she'll enjoy. So I mean, it's going to be a transition, obviously, because anyone who's had a guide dog will know, obviously, when the guide dog retires, they're so used to being you're attached to you and being essentially your third limb, and then like your third arm, and then when they go, or when they retire, then they have to resume a different role, and it's very hard for them to be able to see a new dog going out and assuming a new role, and they're not in that role. But what I have been told from other trainers and other people is that they do get used to it very quickly, and they'll soon get into the habit of, oh, this is great, I'm just a retired dog now, I can literally just be the queen or the king of the household while the other dog assumes the role of being a working dog. This is great. So I think she'll enjoy it after a while.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing your little bits and pieces of your life and how you overcome everyday things and have independence. And we love sharing that commonality, and hopefully we get this story out so people can see how you do things and maybe get some ideas. I've got some ideas from what you've shared that I haven't considered before. And so if you want to send us, I think you mentioned an app. It was a learning app that you said would record and also link up with like notes. So if you would find that and send us to it, and then we would incorporate that into our description. And then stay in touch. Like if you want us on your show for anything, we'd love to help out with anything we can. And hopefully we can get you some subscribers out of hosting you on our channel. So thanks again for coming, and stay in touch, Emily.
Oh, thank you very much, and hopefully you'll be able to do something again in the future. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been really lovely talking to you both.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye, Emily.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.